All right, here we are at the Crystal Clearpoint Studios, and it's colder than a witch's tit in a metal bra.
Yes, it
Why are
is.
you looking at my chest? That's what I want to know. Why are you looking at
I'm
my
trying to
chest?
see if you got your bra on or not.
I don't
Because
know. I'll tell you what, right now, these things could cut glass. So
I'm telling you.
I am cold. I am cold. I'm saying I'm cold.
You know, something my mom used to say to me all the time. Anytime I'd say like I did something good or I was proud of myself, she goes, "Well, don't break your arm patting yourself on the back."
Yeah.
So I've always tried to be humble, but I have to tell you, I love our little intro.
Oh,
it
I
is
think
up.
it was adorable.
I think it's uplifting the music and
Well, I think it captured my essence. I'll just say that. Sassy.
it was fun. It was fun doing. It was fun creating, some people when I asked for them for like specific things, like when we were doing it, I asked for you to do like 3 or 4 actions, okay? And you guys just took it and ran with it. So I mean that was 90% of the battle right there. It's just that willingness to be kind of kooky or whatever else. So y'all made it easy for me to create it. So
Well, I've always wondered why I didn't go into acting because I love doing, but I kind of did. If you think about what I did with my career, because I did a lot of undercover work
yeah.
and having to go in and do surveillance. I actually lived with a person on and off for 6 months. I rented they had a mobile home park, and I rented a mobile home from them in their park out in East Texas and lived there part-time so I could do surveillance on them. So I had to take on a whole identity and all that stuff. And this person took me out and gave me golf lessons.
Dang.
So I mean that was the most intense thing. But I have done a lot of role playing as an investigator. So anyway, I want to get us in a good mood. We got Luann Morse here today, and she's Herbal Lou going through a caterpillar stage. She's transforming. We got Dr. Matthew Pierce, and he's just grouchy.
And gotcha.
He's an old curmudgeon. And we have me that I'm just crazy. And I wanted to get us laughing though, because we wanted to talk about disappointment today. So I wanted to bring everybody up so we could bring everybody down.
well, I wouldn't say it'd be bringing us down, just understanding what's next.
So
I think
somebody
that's a great way
define
to say that,
disappointment.
Luann. Just like what's next. I mean, because yeah, I'm in disappointment right now, and so it's up in the air. Like, okay, what now? Like, what am I going
Yeah.
to do now?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not thrilled with 24. 24 needs to go in the closet with 23 and bring on 25 because this
Mm.
year is not really impressing me much so far this year.
Not starting well, is it? Mm-mm.
It's not that it's bad, it's just annoying. It's just annoying.
Well, one of the things that we mentioned with disappointment is that you have expectations. Of course, I met a friend, I guess it was 2 years ago now, that said you shouldn't expect anything. You should not have any expectations.
Who said that?
Scott. So my
Not my Scott. Not my
not
Scott.
your Scott, not your Scott. Mhm. So it was like, but don't you want to plan things? Don't you want, I mean, that's a part of planning to me, to have an expectation about what am I going to do? What are they going to do? What do I feel like they should do? Or I don't know who they are, but you know what I mean.
They is those other people that don't agree with us. That's who they are. So, well, here's my thing. How do you know, number one, what you can realistically ask or expect out of a person? How do you get to a place where you can ask them to do or be something with you? And if you do ask for whatever reason, how can you know if you can expect them to be what they say? And are they just lying to you if they don't do that? Or are they lying to themselves because they really would like to do that or be that person and just can't? So, I mean, to me, that's a six-sided die, dice. So when you roll that sucker, you don't know what you're going to get, do you?
No.
So,
No.
No, and what I have found is regardless, even if it's ugly, the truth is always better.
Yeah.
You know,
why? Why do you think that? I mean, I agree with you, just like, but why?
but because I do have expectations of a friendly encounter, of a better encounter, of being better myself, and seeing the best in people. And I do believe that's an expectation. And so I don't know how you live without it. But where was I going?
I don't know.
I don't know. But it's frustrating to have someone lie to you, and then you've rearranged your whole life to I don't know,
That sounds like a
Incor-
divorce.
incorporate them based on who they say they are.
Yeah.
Scott never lied to me. This is not about Scott, but uh I think that when people lie or tell you lies or tell you something that is just blatantly not true, how can you trust them?
You can
Well,
trust him to be
but
a
on the-
liar.
I think there's a flip side to that too, because I think that there are some people out there that don't necessarily recognize that they're lying to themselves. I mean,
Ah.
so they're showing up as they think they should show up,
Ah.
which can cause, expectation to change drastically,
So
And
do
so
you
if you
think,
don't know who you are, or if you don't know like how you're reacting, other people aren't going to have that, that freedom to be able to react with you how you want them to. Does that make sense? I mean, it's
yeah,
just,
so are they lying to themselves by telling me a lie, or okay, but Deborah, speak up.
Well, I don't think that all the time that people are lying to themselves. I think it's a matter of defining words of like what does love look like to you versus what does love look like to me, or like a great example is, and I see this all the time in the PI business, is that, well, people will go, well, the law says, well, yeah, that's the verbatim, you quoted the law verbatim, but that's not what it means. And they put a very different filtering system on words. And just because they decide that's what it means, then they're supposed to make it so, but it's a law and the laws have to be defined. And that's why people spend years in school learning how to define those laws. And I think that same concept applies to who we are emotionally, because I've had people that I thought were friends and they told me that they don't want me to tell them the truth all the time. They want me to keep my mouth shut. Okay. To me, that's not a friend. But now that they've defined what friend looks like to them, I can now either choose to be a friend under their terms, or I can choose not to have that relationship. So I think a lot of it's getting defined clarity.
So is that why we become disappointed?
Well, I do. I'm very disappointed in people because of that. But because my biggest foundation of disappointment is hypocrisy. Where people will say, I want you to be this to me, and I want you to treat me this way, and I want to feel loved and honored and respected, but yet, and then they'll tell me what that looks like. They'll define it for me, and I will make my heroic attempt to follow their guidelines, which I don't always do because I am human. But when I tell them how I want to be treated, they're like, no, you're pushing my buttons. You're triggering me. That's a boundary. Well, excuse me, as a friend, I'm trying to give you what you want. And as a friend, I want you to try and give me I'm not asking you to rob a bank. I'm not asking you to break any moral or ethical rules or laws. Does that make
So
sense?
yeah, it makes total sense. So when is that time frame that you that you say, okay, hey, Matthew, you need to adjust your expectations because this isn't working? Is that fair to me? Is that fair to them? I mean, where do we draw the line in how we set our expectations?
I think it starts with conversation. heart to heart, truth to truth, going, look, I value you as a human being. I'm not ready to throw this relationship into the trash. However, I'm not getting what I need in this relationship. And then if you have that conversation and you are very explicit and you're very good at communicating your needs or desires or your definitions, and they fail to meet you halfway and that continues on, then I think it's time to, say adios amigo.
Yeah. And that's a tough position to be in. Okay. I mean, it's like, there's a couple relationships and a couple, partnerships that I can think back to that it was just like the expectation was off from the very beginning. But me being the nice guy that I am, I just kind of kept on with it until finally it was just, it went bankrupt. There was nothing I could do about it.
I
So
understand that. And I got to that point, and instead of me trying to communicate, I just said,
cut the cords
Well, wait a minute, wait a
and
minute.
walk
Did
away.
you try to communicate with your actions? There's other ways than just sitting down words. I mean, did you let them know you were unhappy in any way, or?
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think I do pretty well at communicating. I think that when it comes down to it, that I can communicate where I'm coming from. And I know that a lot of times the expectation is mostly coming from me because I have, something in my mind that I see you this way. And if I'm not seeing you that way, then I will like pipe up and go, this isn't fitting. This isn't fitting with what my expectation was. And sometimes it's very hard because, I've had it happen that, that was not met well, not well at all. And, within a few conversations, that relationship just disappeared. Okay. Likewise, I've had the opposite happen where I had those conversations and those people go, oh my gosh, I didn't know I was doing that. And so that's why I brought up, is like, are they lying to themselves? And can you even set an expectation if they're lying to themselves?
Okay, I got a
So
good question. Then I want to get back to Luann. My question for you, Matthew, is when they said that they weren't aware they were doing it, did they make the adjustments and were they successful in making the adjustments?
some yes, some no.
Okay, so
Just be
Luann, you
honest.
said you didn't communicate and you just snipped them. Did you not communicate any of your displeasure or what?
I just, we've been friends for 10 plus years. I don't understand how this happened. I don't understand, and I've apologized. And I was so disappointed when the answer was, I'm sticking by what I said.
Yeah.
There was, I guess I felt like there was no discussion to be had.
Well, having knowledge of what you're referring to, here's what's interesting to me in a lot of situations, at least for me personally, I have found myself listening to someone, they go, well, you did blah, 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 blah. And that was not my intent, what they said I did. And number two, I really don't think I did that. What I will do though, is I will apologize and say, if that's what happened and that's how you felt, and that's how you received it, I apologize because that was never my intention. And what gets me is that 9 times out of 10, that's not enough. They will still harbor that resentment and they will hold it over your head and then run. So one of the things that I have come up with, if the relationship continues and I bring up something I want to change, and I say, this is what's bugging me, this is what I want to talk about. And they start bringing up all these other issues about me. I'm like, we don't get to talk about that today. I initiated this conversation. These are the issues that I brought to the table. You have not expressed any discontent in the relationship. If this is making you uncomfortable, we will talk about that at a later date. But this is my agenda today, and you don't get to control it. Man, that changes a lot of things.
That would change a lot of things because I mean, I love how you said what you said is that, no, this is my agenda today. Okay. We're going to take and we're going to discuss this because I brought it up. So therefore, I really want to focus on my expectations and what's going on with me. So we don't get to change the subject. We're going to talk about this right here. So I like how you said that.
So
Thank you.
even in the face of disappointment, we need expectations to kind of guide us to where we want to go next, don't we?
I think so. I think that we definitely need to have those types of expectations. But I think that we need to have a closer look at how we set those expectations, like kind of what rules we have in place, for ourselves. Is like, well, why are you making that expectation? Okay. I mean, because I'll tell you right now that my brain sometimes thinks faster than, what other people do. Okay. And I'm not trying to brag on myself or anything like that. But if someone, like, if I say something and they get upset, okay, I have to take it like 5 steps back and say, the reason why I said what I said was XYZ. And when I explain it, they're like, oh, okay, you know? And so that's a fault on my part because I didn't explain the expectation, or I didn't, put it out there that my expectation is this.
You're
Okay,
skipping ahead and they can't fill in the blanks.
exactly. And
Well,
so
but it makes
that's my
sense.
issue.
Well, but is it your issue or is it theirs? Because here's what it makes sense to me. I would say the majority of relationships start with like, I meet you, you meet me, we laugh, we connect, there's a synergy going on there. We're making each other feel good, whether it's a sexual relationship or a friendship or whatever. And then the minute something doesn't make us feel good anymore, how many people are quick to throw that relationship into the trash? Instead of saying, hey, you know what? This is just a time. And I've seen it with marriages where, they've been married 20 years and all of a sudden it's not working anymore. Well, 20 years is a lot of time to say, gee, this is not worth the effort anymore. And people don't want it. Instead, it's easier to go and look for another body that will make them feel better, whether it's a friendship or marriage or whatever. And I remember this one specific case that I worked on, and that happened. They'd been married 35 years. And one of the spouses had gone through a very rough time in adjusting to retirement and different things and wanted to feel young. And you're going, oh, midlife crisis. Well, it was more than that. It was the fact that they quit talking. They quit doing things together. Like one of the things that Scott and I are so different. My husband and I are so different. It is not even funny. And we're both Geminis. So it's like he's the Gemini to the left and I'm the Gemini to the right. So we have to consciously make a choice, make a decision. We're going to meet in the middle, and how often we're going to meet in the middle and what that looks like and how do we facilitate that. And we hold each other accountable because we're both so self-contained. It's easy for us to live in the same house and not even talk to each other for a week. Seriously, it is. And so I guess what my big disappointment is the lack of effort that people will put into sustaining relationships. But then again, I realize that my friendships are like marriages. I put everything I have into my friendships, and I don't see that in most people. They'll say, well, we've been buddies 15 years. And what they do is they party together for 15 years. But, the intensity of a depth of an intimacy seems to be lacking a lot of times in my assessment, my idea of what I would want. Okay.
Well, and I really like how you put that too. I mean, it's like the depth of the intimacy. Okay. I mean, but what are you willing to give? What am I willing to give? Are we willing to see each other for who we are? Okay. And I mean, I completely and totally get, like, I mean, the relationship between you and Scott, you can be in the same household, not talk for a week. I was the same way in some of my relationships. Okay. That the person was so independent, they did their thing, I did my thing, but we had an understanding that, there's times that we need to come back together to really just look at this relationship and enjoy it. So yeah, I totally get it. But I don't know. There's just times that the expectations are just too much. Like, I mean, I can talk not a recent relationship, but a fairly recent relationship is that, you know, they had an expectation of me taking care of them,
Mhm.
and it wasn't stated, it wasn't put out there, and so on and so forth, but it started becoming very, very, very apparent that they wanted to get away from them being responsible and to shove all the responsibility on me. And so I guess their expectation towards me changed. And so my question is like, what happens when that happens? When their expectation of me changes? Do I adjust? Do I have the conversation? No, my expectations haven't changed. Do
Do
we
you
need
want
to
to adjust?
compromise?
That's the first question. Do you want to adjust?
Yeah.
Okay. How important is the relationship and do you get enough out of it to sustain you? Are they asking you to do something you're capable of doing? You know? Um, as an example, I'll use one of my previous marriages. I love that. One of my previous marriages. I was married to a gay man. And ironically enough, this is telling on me because I have great intuition, but I don't always act on it. Our very first date, I asked him if he was gay. Very first date, right? Within 10 minutes of the date. Okay. And we still wound up getting married. And when after 4.5 years of torture, because he was emotionally abusive about it, we sat down and I said, "You're important enough to me." And I made a list of all the things I got out of the marriage besides sex that made it worthwhile for me to want to sustain the marriage,
Right.
you know? And I was willing to compromise my idea of marriage in order to sustain that. Or I was willing to try. Let me say that. I was willing to try. He was not. He divorced me.
Well, but he told you up front he was not gay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He came in and lying to me. And I think he was lying to himself at that point in his life. I don't think coming out as gay was a simple process for him. I really don't know what he went through. I don't know what it was like for him emotionally. He didn't share that with me, but he made life a living hell for 2 years, trying to convince me I was crazy. So that's a whole different ball of wax. You don't need to punish people for your lack, or for your indiscretions or anything else. So he moved into a whole nother area.
But is that now I'm going into the danger zone. Is that
Uh-oh.
is that a narcissistic tendency? Did that really have anything to do with the fact that he was gay and lying to
Oh
you?
no, no.
Yeah.
I've always said that the marriage was not destroyed because he was gay. He was destroyed because he was a psychopath. You know, because there was no reason for him to do the cruel things that he did to me, trying to make me question my sanity. For example, he was a private investigator as well. So he would go out of town and work a case, and he was supposed to be gone 3 days. I wouldn't see him for 3 weeks you know and this is before it was so easy to keep track of people. We had cell phones, but again, they were very expensive and stuff. But then he would call me collect and say, "Well, I'm in Houston, I had blah blah blah," and this is where I am. And then a month later we'd get a phone bill and it was said that he called me collect from San Antonio. Oh, the phone bill made a mistake, the phone company, they were wrong, blah,
Of course.
I mean, he would lie about stupid things. But I did have a reason to bring this up. We had an agreement. I got pregnant during this process, and we had an agreement that he would sustain the marriage financially, at least for 1 year, to allow me to take leave of my company. We were partners in a PI company, so I could take care of my daughter for a year, the first year of her life. And he did that beautifully. In fact, that year was probably the year that he was the best husband of the whole marriage. He came home every night. I don't know how often he stepped out. If he did it, he was very discreet. He paid all the bills. and I had free reign of the money. He let me manage the money, so it wasn't like he was doling it out, and stuff. It was a very operational marriage. And in fact, he did it for a year and a half. He did it for 5 months longer than what we agreed to. But then the son of a bitch turned around and filed divorce without telling me, we're done, our agreement's over, and had me served with divorce papers on my birthday.
Nice. That's really nice.
Well, So, how do we go down that rabbit hole, Luann? This is your fault.
Well, because I'm wondering if there are so many factors that play into our relationships. It's not just expectations. And I hope that in a relationship, I share my expectations, but I can tell you that I may not have shared everything because the other party said there's no such thing as expectations. You shouldn't have them.
What? I got lost. What?
We're talking about expectations and disappointment.
Well, I think you always share your expectations with people, from my experience.
But I'm not sure I shared them all with that relationship because the other party did not live by expectations. The other party says there shouldn't be any expectations.
Oh, I think that's bullshit. I think you told them that they just were blowing you.
Well, okay, but here's the thing, because the situation that I'm in right now, okay, I'm being the nice guy, and so I am taking a lot of leeway, about like, okay, let's work it out. Let's discuss this. I could be, let's just read the writing on the wall and just like,
Be done.
But I'm the nice guy, and so is it bad for me to be doing that? Should I arrange my expectations and not have an expectation of how they're going to react, or or what? Because I get it as far as like, we shouldn't have expectations, but in some way we kind of have to. And
All right, stop. Everybody stop. I'm in pain. I'm in pain. Yes, you should have expectations. No, you cannot expect that person to fulfill your expectations, but you can find the person who can fulfill those expectations if that's what you want.
Thank you. That's what I was getting to, is that sometimes, and I'm guilty of this, is seeing that if one relationship ends, there's something else available.
Exactly. No, you
Well,
can't make people do what you want. You can't.
No, absolutely not.
No,
but
and
ooh, I don't know why, but that pushed a button for me, Dr. Matthew.
Hey, that's what this forum is for, is to push each other's buttons and to get the reactions.
Mhm.
And I appreciate your reaction. I appreciate that, because there are things that I don't see. There are things
Well, here's what really just pisses me off is that when we have an emotion or a reaction or whatever, and we're having a hard conversation with someone, when they act like we're totally wrong for being passionate or upset, like, well, what's wrong with you? Like we're not supposed to have these feelings. I'm going to tell you right now, that just makes me want to punch them in the face.
Or how about you don't really feel that way?
Yes.
Excuse me? I said it. It came out of my mouth. I feel it right here. I feel it right here. And when I said how I felt, and his response was, I don't feel that way, then what am I supposed to do? Continue on in pain so I can be a friend?
Yeah.
When that's not the kind of relationship I want with him.
Okay, so let me just say this. Sweet Jesus, help me. Knowing what I know about what you're talking about, I'm going to say this as diplomatically as I can. This person knew that there was more than just friendship on the table from day one. whatever you want to call it, whether it was sex, romance, whatever. They knew it was more than friendship. So they were a fucking asshole to let the relationship go the way it did for as long as it did, knowing that that was never limited in that capacity. So fuck them.
So yeah, and I don't know why it's bothering me for the past 24 hours. I don't know what triggered it. I have no idea. But something triggered it. And I said I thought I was done with that. But I guess I wasn't. So that's why I ended the relationship, because I was not going to torture myself.
No, no. My Zoom is driving me nuts. I'll figure this out next time. Every time I move my hand, I have a hand gesture show up on the screen somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I get the thumbs up and all that stuff. I'll figure out how to turn that off next time because it's making me nuts.
Well, I think it's kind of funny because you get a thumbs up when you're talking about
Yeah.
something that you don't agree with. So it's like it's just
I
completely and
know.
totally off.
Yeah.
It's making me crazy.
Well, let me just go back to our being disappointed. I want to have certain expectations. I want people to know in relationships, this is what I expect. Even if it's just superficial, I expect you to be honest with me.
Well, and sometimes we can't even express our expectations. This podcast is a perfect example of that. I want the podcast to have a certain synergy, and I want it to have an energy and a certain flow. Now, if I had to sit down and describe it after pondering that for about 36 hours, I might be able to put that in words. But just to come off the top of my head of what I want this podcast to be, I would not be able to just pop it off the top of my head. However, this podcast meets my expectations of what I want it to be and how I want it to be because I just know how I feel.
Right.
And I think that that's a lot of the issue here is that I see people, especially on social media, they're dancing around issues and they don't call a spade and they don't call it whatever it is. And they use euphemisms and all kinds of little
Like
diplomatic.
controlling.
Yeah. And, and whatever happened to saying, you know what? I don't like you talk to me like that. Quit being a bitch. Well, what happened to that? That's not really great English. I understand that. I have a very good vocabulary, despite the fact that I cuss. But sometimes you just want to get directly to the point.
I think some people need to know that you're disappointed, and some people do not understand your kindness in expressing your disappointment. So you got to say, fuck you.
Yeah.
You know what? I like that, Luann. I really do. Because I mean, I'm guilty of being the nice guy,
Mhm.
and okay, so how do I put this diplomatically, or how do I say this so it doesn't hurt? Okay.
Mhm.
And when you finally get to that point, it was like, I'm not going to apologize for this. If you're hurt, you're hurt. And, you're going to have to deal with that.
Mhm.
I'm not going to apologize for my behavior because we've had this conversation, you know? So it comes to the time that it's like, not necessarily, fuck you, but it's like, no, I'm not, I've taken responsibility for all I can take responsibility for. It's your turn.
Well, and when they mistake your kindness for weakness, that is
Um,
exasperating. Because now this like, I mean, I have literally sat in conversations with people, both personal and professional, and because I'm saying things very diplomatically and stuff, I have literally watched them verbally go for my throat.
Yeah.
That doesn't go over well in my house. I'm just going to tell you. And it does bring out the wolf in me.
Well,
well,
I would
I
rather
mean,
like put it out there, okay, and then let's deal with this, okay? That's the way I've always been, okay? But again, like this is one of my things. I'll put it off as long as I possibly can because I'm the nice guy. I don't want to be the asshole, okay? But there comes a time that sometimes I just kind of have to step into that role and go, okay, here it is.
as I get older, Matthew, I realize that I can try to kill them with kindness, but that's not what makes the communication come across.
No.
Okay, well, wait a
No,
minute.
I
That's
understand.
let's get realistic. Just because people are saying words that are nice and diplomatic and phrased in a kindly way does not mean that they're being kind,
No.
you know? And I would much rather have someone in my face with a finger gouging my shoulder, talking to me real than someone that's over there mincing their words, making sarcastic remarks with the wrong tone of voice. And then they go, well, what are you mad about? I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
Oh, that just drives me nuts.
But that's definitely a them issue. You know,
Yeah.
how you react to it is your issue. And honestly, I mean, I'm bad at that reaction, you know, because a lot of times, like I said, I'm 5 steps ahead of you. And if you can't keep up, I'm sorry. You know, if I had to go back and clean the messes up that, you know, that you didn't understand, that's going to make you even more upset.
Well, I had a conversation just the other day with someone and I was relaying something about my past. And they looked at me and they smiled and they goes, well, I just don't believe that's true. I don't believe you did that. I said, you just called me a motherfucking liar. You don't get to
Mm.
say that to me. I didn't say you were a liar. I'm like, yeah, you did. When
Yeah,
you tell
you
me
did.
that you don't believe me, you just said I'm a liar. You know, again, using that vocabulary, using that tone of voice, but not being honest. And I will take honesty with open intention any day of the week,
Mhm.
any day.
Like, yeah, you don't feel that way.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I do. I do feel that way.
Yeah.
And who are you to say how I feel? Because it's in here. It's interpersonal. It's, what do you call it? It's my perspective, not yours.
Yeah.
It's not your
Of
perspective, it's
course.
your emotion. Even
Yes.
you can't, even we cannot really control our emotions. We only control what we do with them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's what I have found is I give a lot of grace to people until I just don't have any grace left for them. And then that's when
Same.
things get bad,
Same.
you know, you know. And I think that that's a disservice to them. I'll be honest. I think that by not speaking up sooner, I'm not being fair to them and I'm not being fair to me. And I will say, well, that's just who they are. And I have to accept them how they are. And I'm like, as I've gotten older, no, don't want to accept that. Don't have to, don't want to.
I think you're right, Deborah, because I think that there are many things in the long relationship that I had with my friend that I gave grace for, that I overlooked it. And instead of saying, this really hurt my feelings, but because we're friends, I'm going to look past it.
Yeah.
And it's those kinds of conversations that I either am clueless about having or I just don't say what I just said. This hurt my feelings.
I'm in the same boat. I mean, Luann, I'm right there with you.
So maybe we need more of that.
Right?
Well,
Yeah, I think that
I
in
find
2024, I mean, we talked about like what do we want more of, what do we want less of in 2024 in the last podcast. You know, I think I came to a realization that like I've been settling, and like if I want more of something in my life and it's not happening, it's because I haven't taken action on it. Okay. And so I took a good hard look at those things in my life that were not working. Okay. That I could pinpoint and I could step back away from and look at it from a standpoint of not being emotional, but saying form and function. Okay. X, Y, Z, that's this right here. Okay. In a relationship, it's like, am I getting something out of the relationship? You know, is it suiting my needs? Is it suiting my purpose? You know, what is it? Is it supporting me? Okay. Doing the same thing with business. Okay. Is it making me happy? Is it like actually like sustaining me and sustaining my life and what I need? Okay. And so I've just been looking and saying, okay, wait a second. Yeah, not working. So I'm the only person that can do anything about it.
And do you say, this whatever it is, it's not working for me. And I don't know what to do about it.
I did that. And of course I found myself like going back into oh, just be the good guy. You don't want to cause waves. This person is needed in your life, et cetera, et cetera. And then I went, no, because nothing's going to change if I don't say something. If I don't like say, here it is, this is what I need. If you're not willing to see where I'm coming from and seeing what's going on, I mean, relationships are a little tough, like romantic relationships are a little tough to do that with. But I'm going to tell you right now, a business relationship, because numbers are involved, it's very easy to look at. Okay. Now, I've had businesses before and I've done business with, my partner, in life. I've done business with friends, I've done business with complete and total strangers and have had better results, so, it's like what works and what does not work. And I've just been in 2024 asking myself, is this working for me? And I have to fight myself to say, well, sometimes you don't get to be the good guy, Matt. You kind of have to be the bad guy.
Well, the way you describe relationships there, I mean, that's exhausting. When
Yeah.
you're always having to put that kind of thought into it and that kind of energy into it. I mean, I feel like, and not that I don't maybe step on y'all's guys' toes sometimes, or like you're like, what the hell is she doing now? But I feel like I can be me and say what I want to say with either of you separately or together. And if you can't do that, what's the point of you're not having a relationship. What you're having is an exchange. So
Yeah.
it's like, I don't get like people that go to a lot of parties. That's exhausting to me because I put 110% into my relationships. An exchange, I'm going to put a smile on. I'm going to say nice things to you. I'm going to try to uplift you because that's my way of expressing what I call godly love. He wants us to make people feel good and have camaraderie. Camaraderie is not a relationship, though.
No.
Well, I feel like
Friendship is a
yeah.
relationship.
If it's someone that you love unconditionally, you should be able to support what they do without agreeing with it. And I don't mean abuse of you. I mean, I'm looking for this job, or these are my skills, and do you think I could fit with this job? And then you support them.
Exactly. Again, I go back to my marriage now, and we've been together 27 years. Scott and I are different spiritual beliefs. We're of a different spiritual components. And he supports what I believe. I support what he believes. We don't agree with it. But sometimes all you got to do to be supportive to someone is just not be detrimental to them and be negative to them. I don't, Scott can't support me in my spiritual belief system, but he can support me in my spiritual growth and vice versa, but we also speak up if we think that, we're doing something that's detrimental. He always thinks I do too much for other people. He's always telling me slow down. He's always telling me to back off, and he's literally thrown me down on a chair and says, don't get up the rest of the day. I want you to sit there and do nothing. That's what support looks like,
It's so
Yeah.
funny that the readings I did recently, it was very obvious that everyone was not setting their boundaries. And I said, does someone ask you for something or ask you to do something, and before you can actually form an idea in your head, the word yes comes out?
I'm
Do
going to
you
know.
do you actually consider, will I be able to do this for this person? Will it harm me? Will it, am I in a position to say yes? And everybody goes.
Well, I'm a mess lately. I'll just admit it. I am a mess lately compared to how I have been most of my life. I'm very emotional. And part of it is because I have decided that I have put up with people doing things that I don't like, that do hurt my feelings, and I've let them be them, Like, well, that's just who they are. And I've decided I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to be me. And I speak up and I say, that hurts my feelings. I don't like that tone of voice. Don't talk to me that way. Don't say those words to me, and I'm saying that more and more often. And it's freaking people out. It's freaking me out, you know?
Well, and it, mm, I don't know how to explain it. Sometimes I'm so emotional because I'm hurt, and then sometimes I'm so emotional because I'm angry. And they don't, other people don't know, okay, is this hurt or anger? So how, how do you express yourself?
Well, okay. I mean, to me, those are the same things.
Yeah,
Okay.
me too.
Being hurt and upset, okay, all stems from what you care about being stepped on, or like someone's pushing that boundary. Okay.
Mhm.
Upset, anger, I mean, and whatever, that right there, I mean, the root of that is love. Okay. You love something so much, okay, that when someone goes contrary to that, that's where the upset, that's where the anger happens.
Mhm.
And so sometimes it's really hard to see. It's really hard to get back to, okay, well, wait a second. Why am I upset?
Mhm.
I'm upset because they're taking advantage of me, that, that I care so much about this and they don't, and so I always tell, the people that I counsel that, you know, if you're angry, get back to the love, get back to finding out why you're so upset about this. What is it that happened that I mean, that something's being stepped on, that is being violated, that is, being taken advantage of, because that's going to point like to the conversation that you need to have after that. Okay.
Yeah.
And if I would fucking follow my own rules sometime, I'd be a lot better off. Okay.
Isn't
I,
that
But
the
when you're
truth? We're
caught
so
up
good
in,
at giving advice, but do we
uh,
take our own advice?
no, sometimes not.
but see, that's the thing. I'm like 2024, I'm trying to take my own advice. I see these things happening in my life and I'm like, yeah, but I'm not willing to let go of being the nice guy right now.
I don't know when I ever thought I was the nice girl. I've always been the bitch. And I hear more and more often people saying, well, you're a very loving person. I'm like, really? What do I do or say that comes across as loving? I'm always bitching. I'm always complaining. I'm always telling people they need to do better.
Well,
Bec-
okay. So the thing that I respect about you, Deborah, is that when you talk with me, especially in our conversations, okay, it's that you don't mince words. Okay. If I am being unclear, you'll tell me. You'll be like, I don't get that. Okay. I mean, I love your phrase. Okay. Do you just need to bitch, or do you actually want to be helped?
I do say that.
And I love that. I absolutely love that. I've actually used that. Okay. Do you want to bitch, or do you want advice? Do
Well,
you
I'm
want
not going
help?
to waste my time trying to give you advice if you're not going to
Thank you.
listen to
Thank
it.
you. Okay. But to me, that's refreshing, because there are other
yes.
people that will be like, okay, well, I'm just going to be the good friend and I'm just going to sit here and take it. And then I'm going to be frustrated at the end of the conversation because you don't want my advice.
Yes. And that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
Do you want to vent or do you need help figuring it out?
Yeah.
Well, frankly, my advice is too good to waste on people that are not going to listen to it. So I'm not going to waste my energy, first of all. But, I get accused of crossing boundaries a lot, and maybe I do. I don't care. Whose boundaries? They're not mine. So if I'm crossing your boundaries, you have a choice to make. You either put up with it or you walk away or you
Well,
complain.
from the very start, when you and I had conversations, I gave you permission to cross those boundaries.
That's
And
true.
because if I know that I'm uncomfortable, there's something there for me to look at. Okay. I am always constantly looking at myself, because I don't have it all figured out. I mean, that's a fucking booby prize. Okay. I don't have it figured out. Now, do I know a lot? Yeah, I absolutely do know a lot. Do I take my own advice, for the people that I'm counseling? I mean, do I take my own advice? No, not all the time, but I'm starting to.
But I think that's why you need a friend like Deborah who goes,
Absolutely.
okay, do you need advice or do you need to vent?
Yeah.
And she has,
Well, let's go here though, okay? And I appreciate your wonderful words. Thank you so much. I really appreciate them. I have a situation though with Luann where I feel like I did the right thing, but I'm going to tell you right now, 99% of the population would tell me I was a horrible person for doing this, and I interfered in her relationship. I own it. I did it, and I threatened harm on many levels because this person was being ugly to her and hurting her, and I didn't think that she could take care of herself. Now, the average person in society go, well, you crossed a boundary by what you did. I'm not going to go into the details. I probably did by normal standards, but in my point of view, as a friend, I saw that she was not able to care for herself and that this person was going for the kill. They were literally going for the kill. And so at that point, I had to make a decision, and I made the decision knowing I might ruin my relationship with Luann.
But to me, that says that your relationship with Luann was strong enough that you felt that you could do it. And so there had to be some sort of agreement there, that Luann either said, hey, if there ever comes a time where I need a kick in the ass, give it to me. I'll tell you right now that, I mean, I've given you permission. If I need a kick in the ass, give it to me. It might not be comfortable, okay, but I'll respect you for it. Now
Well,
it
and we
becomes
had lots of conversations around my self-harm.
yeah.
I thought she was mad at me for quite a while, and I gave her room to be mad at me, and I gave her space. And but I think what it wound up being is you were grieving. Is that correct? I don't
And I
want to put
think
words.
that's what I'm doing today.
Yeah, because
And I
grief
wish
comes in waves.
So I mean, Deborah, you brought up, like, before we kind of came on air, about like disappointment and grieving. Are they the same thing, or are they two different kind of arenas to operate in? And so, I mean, I want to know your thoughts on it, because like grieving to me is one thing, that there's an actual loss, okay, that something has left. The other portion of that is disappointment. Disappointment is like, it can still be present inside of a relationship, okay, but not necessarily grieving for the relationship and what's going on. So I think that I mean, there are two different arenas we can operate inside of.
I think disappointment is the foundation of grief, or the first step to grief. Because if you're disappointed, there's a loss there. There is a loss there. There's a loss of expectations, or a loss of comfort, or a loss of stability, or a loss of feelings that you are safe in a certain situation or with a certain person. So I think disappointment is the first step down the road of grief. Grief is when there is a loss that can never be retrieved, in my mind. Disappointment is a grieving process that can be repaired and can be recovered, if that makes sense.
Makes
That's what
total
I think.
sense.
That's what I
Makes
think.
total sense. I mean, and I can
There
see, I
she
mean,
is.
there are some relationships that I grieved, or I'm going to have to grieve, because the disappointment is that root. I mean, the disappointment is already there.
Well, let me give you this as an example. So, my second husband died, so I was widowed. And I still grieve that relationship from time to time because I do, all right? And there's a death, and there will never be going back. I don't grieve my relationship with my daughter's father, who was gay, uh, grossly disappointed, but I'm much more peaceful about that marriage ending than I am about being a widow. And it's because, first of all, he's alive. He's having a happy life, I think. I can now appreciate the good things that happened in our marriage. It was not a total disaster. There was a lot of positive there. And would I ever want to be his friend? No, I would never trust him, but I love talking to him. He always challenged me with his ideas, not spiritually or ethically, because he had none, but he was very intelligent. And and that was one of the things that was really strong in our marriage was the intelligent conversations and exchanges. And we were both private investigators, and we nailed our cases because we were both able to see things and talk to people and things like that. So, am I disappointed in that marriage? Oh, absolutely. Do I grieve it? No. So that's kind of my comparisons, I guess.
I get that.
All right. Anything else we want to say? Because I think we're exhausted. I think we wear ourselves out doing this. I know
Well, I
I'm
think that we're vested in it. Okay. I actually had someone comment on, our podcast. Okay. And they said that it's a lively discourse of honesty.
somebody actually watches. I'm just thrilled.
Yeah. A lively discourse of honesty. And they think that it's very refreshing to be able to have conversations like we do, even though we go down rabbit holes or whatever else like that. It's generally what's there.
See, and I live for these kind of conversations. I live for them.
Mhm.
To me, this is what life is. This is life.
It's an intelligent conversation that you're trying to figure out where does this fit for me? How do I make this work? How do I, and I think that we would be happier. That we would be happy with people commenting, negative, positive, it doesn't matter. Of course, we as a group would rather you be positive, but
I would just like to hear what anybody thinks. And I like being challenged. I like people to come across, even with the negative. I don't mean go, well, you're a stupid bitch, blah, blah, blah. That I don't want, but to come across and say, well, you said this and I disagree. And I just think that's ridiculous. That's why I let a lot of the threads on my Facebook go as long as they do, even though I'm just like, you're an idiot, when I'm reading some of the posts, because it intrigues me to see how people think. And I have come to the conclusion, and we can talk about this next week. Most people don't think, they react or they regurgitate what they've been brainwashed.
right. And I think that it's healthy to say, I see your point, but you're not changing my mind. This is how I feel.
I just say, I'm sorry you think that. That's sad.
But that's you though. That's you.
It
And your your opinion, that's your opinion.
Yeah.
Great. Have on it. Okay. But again, like I said, I had someone, comment that, how did they put this? They said that there's such a freedom there. It's like, I know Luann's Catholic, I know that you're pagan, and I know that, Deborah has a Christian ministry. She goes, how does that work? How does that work? She goes, because it's never an issue and you don't have like any inhibition about talking about your differences because you don't get into everybody else's stuff,
Do they want to
like,
come on our show? They could come on our show. I'd love to have them come on the show and ask questions.
I'll ask. I mean,
That would be
but, I mean,
awesome.
they're like, as far as the dynamic goes, she hasn't seen anything like this podcast because it's like, there are people that are of different faiths that are getting along and are actually having intelligent conversations. And, they might not agree, but it doesn't come across in the podcast.
I'm
Well,
sorry.
I love that. I mean, I love hearing that kind of response.
My
Well,
expectation of this group, here we go, is that you can each have your own opinion as long as you're not trying to sway me that I'm wrong
Right.
or inappropriate.
No, and that's the whole thing, because it's fascinating to me how many people will tell me how overpowering I am and how controlling I am, and yet they will try to turn around and control me. I find that fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like poking the bear. Why would you do that?
Well, I think the podcast is, it's balanced. I mean, I think that what we all have to offer, is totally valid. It's totally what's needed in the world today. I think the topics that we pick are genuine, and people can hear, inside of our discourse, I love that word, inside of our discourse, things about themselves.
Yeah,
Um,
that makes
and
sense.
so it's completely and totally relevant. So I just wanted to make sure that y'all knew that people are talking about this podcast. People are talking about what we have to offer and what we're putting out there.
Well,
Yeah.
the invitation is open to anybody that can exhibit some intelligent questions. Or no, I'm not even put that on there. Just exhibit some questions and they can be respectful and not come over here and be jackasses. Come on the show with us, ask us, tell us what you think. I welcome it. Because you know what? If I don't like it, I can just hit end and you're done.
Well,
Well, okay, so I wanted to bring up one more thing because Luann, you didn't know this, okay, about Deborah and I. Okay.
Uh-oh. We're
And
lovers.
don't be surprised because Deborah didn't realize it either.
Oh,
happened.
oh.
Deborah and I have actually been acquainted for over 15 years.
Wow, really?
One of the first readings that I got at a psychic fair, okay,
Uh-huh.
or something of that nature, was from Deborah. She gave me a handwriting analysis. Okay. Yes.
Do
Okay.
you remember what she said?
I don't remember. I do not remember. Okay. But the thing is, I remember her. I remember her like talking about how at the time she was employed or she was working with a company doing like background checks and like helping in HR determine like what people's personalities were and how
Right.
they would fit, how they wouldn't fit, so on and so forth. And I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. So that made an impression on me. And when I was meditating the other day, it was like I've known her for over 15 years. And I'm like, why now? You know, why did all of a sudden we reconnect now? And it's apparent. It's apparent. I mean, we were supposed to meet back then, you know, to get to a point and to a place in our personal lives that we can have these sort of interactions.
Mhm.
Okay.
Isn't that
15 years
weird?
ago, I probably wouldn't have been able to.
Isn't
That is so weird.
Yeah.
So weird. Now, so we'll close on this then. So Matthew brings to point one of my biggest fears is that I'm going to run into someone. They go, "Oh, didn't I pick you up at La Bear one time?" And we had sex.
Oops.
Deborah, if that's your only problem, okay, if that's your only problem, okay, there is a problem in the Dallas gay area, okay, it's called 3 degrees of dick, okay.
Yeah.
If you meet someone, okay, you are only 2 dicks away from someone else that you've dated and someone else you've slept with.
It's true. It's so true. It's so true.
7 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Oh,
Us
pork.
gays, we had to whittle that down and make it more efficient, so it's 3.
Yeah. We'll just call it pork belly.
Oh, God.
So I've always, in fact, I've told Scott many times, I said, I'm not so, because, Scott's younger than me. He's 12 years younger than me. I'm so not so sure that I didn't pick up his dad at the bar one years ago. So,
Oh,
well,
Deborah, Luann, been there, done that.
done that. Okay. We're going to have to do a show on sexual past.
Oh, Lord.
Luann, you'll just have to fake yours. I know you've been a little angel all
Okay,
these years.
so I'm going to tell you right now, there are
That
things
is
that
a
you
bunch of
don't,
BS for sure.
there are things that you don't know about me, you two, that when I start in on that, you're going to be like, what?
Well, I already know how we're going to open that show. We're going to talk about that picture of you and that pink boa, how that came to be.
No, the
And
pink
I'm
hat,
sure
the pink
that'll,
hat.
yeah, that'll blow everything wide open. So,
Well, you
No.
saw on his Facebook that he has the face of a pole dancer. Did you see that?
Yeah.
did I see that? I don't
That's what
remember.
everybody was saying. It was like, and
Oh, yes. Yes.
what's funny is that one of my guides, or a person who has passed, was a good friend of mine. He always used to like take and joke with me that I would make a great pole dancer. Okay. Either I would make a lot of money or I would make a lot of money because people were telling me to put my clothes back on. So we were having a conversation at the Houston Psychic Fair, and that's where this person was from. Okay, and the joke was made that, you know, if I ever do online classes, one of the things that I should do is teach pole dancing. Okay. And not 24 hours later, not 24 hours later when I took that quiz, that's what shows
That's what
up.
it said.
That's what it said.
Well, I was at a party recently, and this guy and I got to talking because there was a lull in the party. I was there as an entertainer, and he was an older gentleman, and he talked about his photography. He's a professional photographer, his history, and how he got started taking a class in this group that was over there in the office off of Swiss Avenue. I'm like, really? What years was that? Because I used to do modeling for their classrooms, and yes, it was nude. And the photographs of me were entered in a lot of contests, and a lot of the photographs of me won awards and all this stuff. And yes, I was in one of his classes as one of his models years and years ago. So
Happens.
I've had a nice life. I've enjoyed my life. It's been very interesting. So no regrets on my part, even for the tragic stuff. All right, Dr. Matthew Pierce, tell them where the hell they can find you, darling.
You all can find me at www.matthewapierce.com. And the email is that matthew@matthewapierce.com. Or you can find me at metaphysicalevents.com. And then that's matthew@metaphysicalevents.com.
Perfect. Now, Luann, what are we doing with you?
Well, you can't find me anywhere on the .coms right now. You can find my personal page, Lou Morris, and ask me questions there if you need to. But herbalou1105@gmail.com. Now, don't get used to that one because it'll change soon. And I guess we could, my new business will be Ancient Herbal Apothecary.
There you go. Now, so this is sponsored by Miles of Smiles Events. If you can't remember any of this for any of the, you can go to Miles of Smiles and send an email there, and I'll get it to the appropriate person. I'm Deborah Colleen Rose, and I'm also an investigator at isgu.com, milesofsmilesevents.com, or just remember my name, DeborahColleenRose.com. I did a good job branding that. So,
Yes, you did.
and if you're listening, ask 3 friends and ask 3 friends to tell 3 friends, and so on and so on and so on, because we like Clairol. So anyway, tell everybody bye.
Bye now.
Bye.